I will now go over some of the things that we'll be using in Photoshop for the first few classes. So let's take it from the top, literally the top of the toolbar, with the Move tool. Now, of course, in Illustrator we have two similar looking arrows at the top. We have the Selection tool and Direct Selection tool, but for this it's just going to be Move. And with the Move tool chosen, we can go ahead and relocate the position of an entire layer. That's important because we can't have multiple objects on a single layer unless we go ahead and link them later on. So notice how I'm still clicking and dragging on this beach ball picture, even though I'm actually not on it. So whatever layer is chosen, that is the layer we're going to be moving around. So in that way, layers work a bit differently in Photoshop than in Illustrator. We can also go up to Edit and Free Transform, or, as I like to do, press Ctrl-T to enter transform mode. Then we can go ahead and resize a layer. So we can also do that with the Move tool selected. If you hold down Shift, you'll keep the picture proportional. You'll keep its width and height from being altered. Or we can let go of Shift and just stretch it and resize it any way we want. When we're done transforming or resizing, you do need to press Enter. Yeah, to get those handles from going, or to get those handles to go away. So that's the Move tool, pretty standard. One of the first tools we'll be using is called the Lasso tool. Now we have three different kinds. The first one gives us the freedom to trace an object in any way we like. But I'm not going to recommend doing this one because it's more difficult. While it does give us more freedom, it is more difficult. We can be very precise with this, but I think this is really only good if you're using like a pen, a virtual pen on a touch screen. It's really hard to trace stuff with the mouse, so let's just disregard that. Okay, moving on. So, long story short, the lasso allows you to precisely trace an object. The polygonal lasso tool allows you to also trace an object. In fact, all the lassos do, but this one allows you to click and drag a straight line as far as you want it to go, and then click again, and we can trace an object this way. Drag a straight line out, then click, and then when you need to turn the line or when you can't go straight anymore, click again, and again, and again. So you can see how I can trace this beach ball by doing this. Just keep going until I can't go straight anymore. Okay, so let's just say I do the whole thing. And I press Enter. Okay, well that's good, but even when I was being careful, which was not down here, but even when I was being careful, I'm still tracing with a series of straight lines, so that might not always be the best option. It can be in a lot of instances, especially if you're tracing things with sharper edges. But if you're tracing something round, then I recommend my best friend here, the Magnetic Lasso tool. So this does its best to stick to whatever object you're tracing, and it does that by looking for differences in color. So obviously, if you're going right here, going around here, this is obviously different than the white background, so it knows to stick to this. It works very much the same way as the as the polygonal, but you can keep going and it should automatically follow what you're tracing. It might be good to just click every so often to lock it in place. That way, if you need to go back, you can press backspace to go back to previous points. It creates them automatically every so often, but it might not hurt to just create them yourself every now and then, as if you're using the polygonal lasso. So this is how we can trace objects pretty easily. The magnetic lasso might lack the freedom that the traditional lasso or even the polygonal lasso has, but I think it's the easiest one to use in most cases. So yeah, so what I can do now is I can either use Control-C or Control-V to copy and paste, or I can right-click and create a new layer by cutting out the ball, layer via cut. Go to the Move tool, We can see that the ball is on its own layer, and this stuff, this white background, gone. Oh, and look at that. I tried to move the ball, but I was on the picture. You can see that I did leave some of the white background in, so I could just go over it again if I wanted to. But I don't want to, so I won't. Okay. And that's how objects can be taken from one background and put onto another. I just happen to have them both in the same place, in the same project this time, but you don't have to. So anyway, I'm going to do some unrelated things right now. But keep in mind, on the toolbar, or with many of the tools, we see an arrow on the lower right corner of a lot of them. That means there are other tools available to us other than the ones showing. So, like with the lasso, if I click and hold it down, I can view other tools. Or if I right-click, I can do the same thing. Right-click to view other shapes, and so forth. We have some of the same shapes that we had available to us in Illustrator. And with the custom shape tool, we can select from like a variety of different irregular shapes, I guess you could say. You can even draw a pair of scissors if you want. Look at that, isn't that fantastic? Absolutely. And I can use the paint bucket to fill it in with color. Yeah, and we can do stuff like that. Let's go over what it means to skew something. We're going to be doing that for the billboard activity. To skew means to change the angle of something, so it looks like you're looking at it from a different direction. In order to do that, I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, and Skew. Now I just have to fiddle around with these handles here. I'm not actually resizing, but I'm kind of, well, changing the angle of this pair of scissors. Let's see, maybe move this that way, move that down. Ah, okay. Press enter. So it looks like I'm looking at it kind of almost from the side, although not quite. It looks like I walked to the left, from the center to the left. I'm looking at it from an angle, at an angle. So that's what skewing does. So we'll practice that with actual pictures. I know it's kind of awkward for the scissors, but it does look like we're closer to the handles than the actual scissors themselves. And it does that for the entire layer when I do that. Let me just type something with the type tool. Yes, that is something that is the same. We can type text horizontally and vertically, like we can have it go down, but I'm just gonna stick with horizontally. Just type the word design. If I click on the move tool and press Control T, I can transform it. All right. Now, these two things right here, well, they're not quite the same as in Illustrator. One's foreground color, one's background. It's not stroke. What do I do if I want to add a stroke to this? I need to go to the Layer Style menu. I can get there either by double-clicking beside the name of the layer. Like, don't just click the name, because then you'll just rename it. I had to get out of transform mode first. But you want to double-click beside it, and that brings it up. Or, click the layer once, go to FX, and blending options. Might find it easier just to double-click in an empty space here. Bottom line is, it brings up the Layer Style menu. And if you look over here, we can see the option for a stroke. So we can click this, it checks it off, and then we can modify the size of the stroke. You can make a really big stroke. You can just type in a number here too. Oh, 21, okay, that's good. It's the age of adulthood in some ways, I guess. Other ways it's 18. But anyway, have that be size 21, and then we can change its color. You can see it happening in real time. Okay, that's pretty good, and oh, okay. We can actually make it a gradient if we want to. I totally knew that. And we can do stuff like that. You can even mess with these things to change the appearance. That's pretty cool. It fits the bright sunny theme. And there are some other options here, like bevel and emboss, to give it like a semi 3D bumpy look. So you can check multiple ones off at a time. I can even have a fill color. If you go to color overlay, and just choose whatever color you like for the fill. I like that. Green with the red or orange and yellow on the outside. I like it. It's different. Yeah, it's a nice simple way to spice up your text. So that's how we can do it. And it lists all the effects you used underneath. So you can actually hide them individually if you wanted to, by clicking these eyeballs next to the names. So that's pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff. Let's just say that I'm just gonna get rid of this picture here. I can just press delete. Let's just say that I just want to leave this without that picture, but I want a different background color. I don't want to leave it to white. This, we're not going to mess with that. That just doesn't... See, it just doesn't do what we want it to do. Let's do it another way. To change the background color, we just need to go to this button, which is called Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer. We're not going to be doing the adjustment layer thing right now. We're just going to be creating a solid color background. So just remember to choose the top option, solid color. And then we can choose a background color. Sure. There. Well, actually, you know what? In a way, it did create a new adjustment layer. I don't really want to get into what that is right now, but I guess I kind of have to. An adjustment layer alters color or some type of property and affects every layer below it. Since the only layer below this is the background, it only turns the background yellow. If I moved it upwards, it covers the whole thing in yellow. So, I wasn't really going to get into that, but I guess I had to. If you just keep it here, right above where that plain background is, then you're fine. It doesn't affect everything. It doesn't affect anything above it. See how one thing can just lead into another in this program? I like that though. I like it. Everything's kind of linked together. Speaking of link, we can hold shift and click multiple layers, then right click to link the layers. That will allow us to move two things at the same time. That's not the same as merging. Merging will make it so only one layer is there altogether. Like if I go to merge layers, see how it only says shape 1 now? Instead of before, it said shape 1 in layer 3. So yeah. We have another tool called the paint bucket that allows us to fill an area with color. So like, it's easy to demonstrate on a shape actually. There. And then I can use the paint bucket to apply the fill color. And it's actually called foreground color in Photoshop. So whatever this is, oops, click the wrong thing. Oh, sometimes you might get this message. Just click OK. And then you can fill it. So that's how it works. So we have to actually select the color first, then use the paint bucket to do that. So that was a pretty good introduction to Photoshop. We are going to start off by using the lasso. We will organize our layers. We'll add some effects to our text. And then we will expand on our repertoire of abilities in this piece of software to do bigger and better things. So stay tuned. We're just getting started.